So let's get your head around what makes a good salad, right? And it's dead simple, right? You can vary it, you can change it, you can tweak it to however you like it or whatever you like and whatever's in season. But let's just start off with a basic everyday salad here. I'm using a round lettuce. It's one of the cheapest lettuces in the world, right? A little bit of radicchio, slightly bitter, but it's nice in contrast and it's good colour. If you ever want to use herbs, soft herbs are rock and roll. I'm using mint here. You could use basil, you could use parsley, and there's many other soft herbs you could use, dill, fennel, tarragon, stuff like that. That's going to give it a little bit of fragrance, a little bit of a kick. Vegetables, right? Of course there's things like tomato and stuff like that, but you don't exactly have to just chunk it up or slice it up like you get it everywhere else. A really cheap speed peeler like this means that you can get something as lovely as a cucumber and just slice it, and you can just make it look different and interesting and exciting. And it looks like something that a chef would do, even if you're a rubbish cook. So just by doing that, I mean, I don't know any chefs, even the Japanese boys, that can knock that out every single time. Look at the thinness of that, right? You can do that, and it's cheap. Carrot, fennel, celeriac, celery, beetroots, any kind of nice, beautiful sort of root veg that you think that would be good in a salad, have a go. But again, the speed peeler, brilliant. And, you know, things like watercress here, you know, they're nice and peppery. And some endive, or you could use the radicchio, you know, they're more sort of mustardy and bitter. And maybe just on its own you wouldn't like it, but sort of lost amongst the mixed salad, you know, it's going to give it all sorts of different flavours and it will really, really work. And then also texture, right? Crunch, okay? And that can come in different forms. Here I've got some pine nuts. I've got some different roasted seeds there, like sunflower seeds and bits and pieces like that. Stale bread or croutons, as you want to call it. Even, you know, taking an Indian poppadom and just like smashing it up. It's all good. It's all good stuff. And also dairy, you know, cheese. You know, feta cheese, mozzarella cheese, any blue cheese, parmesan, you name it. Just about any cheese actually can work. You can crumble it, slice it, grate it. But you don't have to do... Basically what I'm saying to you is a salad does not and should not be boring. Get different types of leaves, possibly a herb, possibly a vegetable, possibly something crunchy like a seed or a crouton or something, some dairy. And if you do any one or two of those elements, it's going to be rock and roll. It's going to be delicious. But if I just ate that now, boring. And some of the good news is that actually, if you eat your salad in the presence of oil and acid, your body can digest more of the goodness from this. So actually, like, it's almost like we were supposed to have a salad dressing. Do you know what I mean? So I want to give you my basic version of a salad dressing. Basically, I do 3 to 1. So what I mean by that is I use a good olive oil. I'm going to put in 3 parts olive oil. So say that olive oil is 3 parts. And then I'm going to use let's say a vinegar here. Let's use a lemon juice, right? The acid can be balsamic vinegar, red wine vinegar, white wine vinegar, champagne vinegar. It can be grapefruit juice, lemon juice, lime juice, right? So acid can be in many different forms. As soon as I put that lemon juice in, you can see exactly how much there is. That's why I quite like using the jam jar, especially for big beginner cooks. You can see exactly how much is in there. If you look in there now, that's nearly 2 to 1 actually. Let me top that up with a bit of oil. You can see the oil and the vinegar separating. That's 3 to 1. So you're on a good way to a dressing. A nice pinch of pepper and a good pinch of salt. Now my advice to you on dressings is always make it just slightly too salty and slightly too acidic, right? And the reason for that is when you put it on your salad, and basically salad leaves is like 98% water, right? It's going to knock it right back down to being bland again. So if you're slightly too acidic and salty, by the time it's knocked it down, it's perfect, okay? The other thing is, that is your basic olive oil and lemon juice dressing. And once you've shaked it, actually be bothered to taste it. Salt, lemon juice, that's a good olive oil and lemon juice dressing. If I wanted to turn it into like a French-style dressing, you know, just by putting a nice teaspoon of Dijon mustard into that, like that, and maybe swap out lemon juice for red or white wine vinegar. We'll give it another shake. And you'll have a nice, thick, French-style dressing. Different again. And of course, if you wanted to lighten it with a little bit of yogurt, you can really do all of these things. So as long as you stick to 3 parts olive oil, 1 part acid, salt and pepper, you can put things like mustard in, or yogurt in, or chopped herbs in, or chopped chili in, and you can kind of like vary your dressings, which makes it exciting and fun, and it means that you can own your own dressing.
Indeed, salads are cool, and salads are not just the thing that you eat before the entree arrives. Salads come in such a wide variety that there's never anything boring about a salad. Welcome everyone, this is chapter number 15 in our ProStart adventure. We are now looking at salads, dressings, and dips. This is Chef Hawks here with you again, and let's start rolling through. So what is a salad? So a salad, the definition, it's either a single food or a mix of different foods which are held together and they are accompanied by a dressing. So let's look in depth about what this is all about. So we have different sizes and different purposes of salads, and they are very wide and varied. So a starter salad or an appetizer salad, this is the kind of salad that you'd have that would be the beginning part of your main meal. It's the very beginning part of that meal. It's generally a smaller portion, as you can see on the picture over here. It's just showing that small little bite size. You're literally looking at maybe something that takes about 3 to 5 minutes to eat. Nothing significant, just to start getting your digestive system rolling and to make you even a little more peckish, ready for the next course. It should be light, fresh, with crisp ingredients, nice tangy, flavorful dressings, and it sets the tone for the rest of the meal. It should work with the rest of the meal, not clash against the rest of the meal. So then we have an accompaniment salad. So an accompaniment salad, as it sounds, it accompanies the entree, the main course. So this is just like a side salad, as it's also known. So this should be light and flavorful, shouldn't be too rich, and it should balance and complement the entree that it's going with. A main course salad or an entree salad. So this is where you're going to have a larger size salad. This is going to be your main course that you're going to enjoy for your meal. So in that case, it's generally going to have some protein on that salad as well. As you can see over on the picture here, we have a Caesar salad, and this has some chicken breast on it and some eggs on it as well. So this will make it a little bit richer, a little more fulfilling, as it's going to be your main course. It should be a well-balanced meal, should have great visual appeal, and it should be nutritional as well. It should have a variety of vegetables, greens, and or fruits on it as well. An intermezzo salad. So an intermezzo salad is a palate cleanser. As you can see right over on the right-hand side here, this is a sorbet. A sorbet is generally made using fruit as the base. You can use vegetables if you want to make a more savory version, but it is a frozen type of a course, and this is something that cleanses your palate after eating a rich dinner, and you may have it before a dessert after a rich meal, or it could be between 2 other courses when one course is particularly rich and you want to cleanse your palate again. So this is something that's a very traditional type of thing to be able to have, but it should be very light. Literally, just about 2 mouthfuls of this is all that you need. It shouldn't be a matter of it being more like a dessert or something super sweet. So something like a lemon sorbet or a lime sorbet or a champagne sorbet. These are the types of things you would have. Possibly a tiny little leaf salad, but again, just about 2 bites. So a dessert salad. So dessert salad is generally when you have something that contains fruit. It can be sweetened gelatin, and it can also contain nuts and cream and whipped cream as well. As you can see in the picture over here, they have a gorgeous appearance, and so they really lend themselves well to things like buffet service, family style service, because of the way that they look, and they can be platted up to be very attractive. So let's take a look at the idea of a salad and what we're putting into that salad. So it should be the freshest, highest quality ingredients that you're featuring on that salad. Where a salad is not being cooked or processed very much, this means that you're not going to be able to cook out any unripened flavors, or you're not going to be able to add more things to it, because salads in general are not cooked. Most of the time they are served fresh as is. So because of that, you need to make sure that you don't have strawberries that are like this. This strawberry here looks wonderful and ripe. These ones look like they would taste like rocks, really. There's not going to be much of anything going on in terms of flavor. So you want to make sure that you have things that are seasonal. You want to have, if you're going to have strawberries, you want to have strawberries that are in season. You don't want to have them when they've been picked 3,000 miles away on the other side of the country, and where they're going to be fairly tasteless because they were picked so young, and they have such a small amount of nutritional value. They may look pretty, but they don't taste of anything. It has to have eye appeal as well. We're looking for freshness, flavor, and eye appeal in our considerations. So what kinds of things do we put into salads? There are all sorts of things. So, an example of some vegetables: celery, cucumber, fruit, mushrooms, peppers, tomatoes, all sorts of root vegetables as well, like celeriac and carrots, anything like those. Then what type of greens do we put in? So there is a massive multitude of available greens. Lettuces are not all the same. They're not all the same flavor. They don't have the same textures, and they don't have all the same appearances or colors, which makes salads so wonderful. Is just how wide and varied they can be. So we have things like arugula. Arugula has a real pungent, peppery flavor to it, almost spicy. But then you have Belgian endive. When you actually have Belgian endive, it has a real bitter type of a flavor to it. Now, if you have it by itself, where you just have the Belgian endive, you may not care for it so much, because it might be too bitter for you to enjoy. But when you mix that with some peppery leaves from arugula, or maybe some sweeter leaves, when you mix them all together, then it can really add some depth of flavor, almost like when we're seasoning things, as opposed to just adding just one single thing. Belgian endive, to sweeten them slightly, can be grilled. You can slice them right down in half, place them on the grill, and that can actually help with the bitter flavor, because it can start to caramelize up the natural sugars that are in there. We have butterhead lettuce. Now this is a very, very soft leafed lettuce, very tender and very loose in its in the way that the lettuce is formed. It's got bright green leaves, very mild flavor, so it can take on lots of the flavors of the vinaigrette you put it with, but it does not keep well. If you're making a salad for 100 people, I wouldn't recommend using butterhead lettuce, because it tends to wilt very quickly. As you're making the actual salad, you may find that your salad now looks flat and lifeless, because it goes limp very, very easily. It's also called Bibb lettuce and Boston lettuce. Crisp head lettuce. Now this is something that's a really crisp, crunchy type of lettuce. It has a significant amount of water content. It's also called iceberg lettuce as well. And so this is one that's very popular, and you can add it to things like burgers and things like that as well. You just have to be very careful with this one, because it has such a high water content. It can wilt a lot of that moisture out very quickly if you do put it on something like hot, like a burger. But it's very popular. In fact, it's the most popular of the lettuces around. It's relatively inexpensive, but it gives a great crunch. So that way you have that contrast in textures. If you want something crunchy in your salad, then crisp head lettuce or iceberg lettuce will work nicely. Then we have curly endive. So curly endive, just like the Belgian endive, is bitter in flavor, but as you actually look at the leaves, they're very wiry kind of looking leaves, very pretty. It makes a very gorgeous looking salad, gives a salad good bulk as well, as it holds itself out in this kind of a shell kind of a shape. It's great to use with other greens, so you kind of tone down that bitter flavor that you have with it as well. But as you get to the very center leaves can actually have a slight sweetness to them as well. They're almost white on the very center there. Then we have escarole. So escarole also has a fair bitterness to it as well. But in the very center again, when you get to the lighter leaves in the very center, that's where that bitterness diminishes, and you get the whiter leaves on the inside that have a slight sweetness to them. Green cabbage. So you may not think of this as one of our greens, but green cabbage is used in things like coleslaw, and so it does have a fairly strong flavor. So this is good because when we use it in something like coleslaw, you actually need to have a little more flavor. And we'll get more into details of how we emphasize the flavors in coleslaw. But when you have something that's a cold salad, it's hard to get all the flavors to extract. Then we have kale. So kale is a cabbage that produces these large, wrinkly edged leaves. This has lots and lots of flavor. Very dark green or red leaves. Has a huge nutritional value. Kale is considered a superfood because of the strength of the nutritional value that's in there. Then we have leaf lettuce. So this is you can have red or green leaves. They grow in bunches. They wilt very easily. Have a very mild flavor, so you can add a great vinaigrette to it, and it will take on all those flavors. A good example of this is oak leaf lettuce. It has a slight bitter flavor to it. Then we have microgreens. Microgreens can be a mixture of all sorts of different, literally just young shoots of these different types of lettuces and herbs. You can get some micro basil. You can get all sorts of different ones where they've literally just been allowed to shoot. They have a lot of nutritional value to them. It's where they've just sprouted up, and it's the first couple of leaves that just sprout up at the top of the stem. They have a nice mild flavor, delicate flavor. So if you want to have a basil flavor in your salad, then you may want to add these in there, just so you have a very mild flavor in there. Napa cabbage. So this is milder than a Savoy cabbage, and the leaves are not quite as wrapped so tight, but they do still have a great flavor to them. And then we have radicchio. So this is leaf chicory, or Italian chicory as well. Has this amazing purple-colored leaves, and they're a very tight ball when they form. And so this means you can actually peel these back and use those as more like a bowl to actually place other salad items into. You can make really good garnishes with this. It does have a slight bitter flavor to it. You generally would mix that with other greens to kind of tone down that bitter flavor again. Then we have red cabbage. So again, with red cabbage, you have this gorgeous purple color, which can really work nicely for different things. If you want to have a different colored coleslaw, you can use red cabbage because it will make the actual the mayonnaise that you mix it with into this pink kind of a color. So it can add some really interesting colors to all of it. Red cabbage has a much more mild flavor compared to other cabbages. Then we have romaine lettuce. Romaine lettuce is most popular in Caesar salad. It's an extremely popular lettuce. It has a nice crisp texture to it, nice and sweet but mild flavor. But it keeps really well, so you can actually slice this up, and it doesn't break down in the same way that things like the Boston Bib lettuce would. And so that's why it works really well with our Caesar dressing, as we're actually making our Caesar dressing and placing that over the leaves, that they don't cook down and break down too quickly. Then we have sorrel. So what's sorrel? That's a slightly acidic and bitter flavored leaf. They form just in these small little individual leaves with a relatively mild flavor. Then we have spinach. So we can actually get spinach in small, young spinach leaves, or we can actually get it where it's in much, much larger, more leathery leaves. So for a salad, I always prefer to go with baby spinach, just because it tends to have a much sweeter kind of a flavor, and the leaves are not as leathery as they can be when they get older and more mature. Always make sure you wash it thoroughly. It tends to trap dirt in there. But it has this great mild, fresh flavor that goes with it too. Watercress is great for either adding a nice peppery flavor to salads. It's also great in soups as well, and makes a really nice cream of watercress soup. But it's great for garnishing different types of things. You can garnish roast meats with these. You can garnish salads with it as well. So there are 4 basic parts of a salad, because when we're making salads, we are in the business of construction, and so we want to make sure that when we're putting our salad together, that we're creating something that looks great, that tastes great, and that all of those flavors are mixed with, all over that salad. We don't want to have it where one side of the salad is kind of bland and kind of oily, the other side of the salad is really racy and acidic, and is kind of crunchy, but without anything else. We want to make sure that we're combining everything together. So this is how we do it. We have 4 basic parts of our salad. We start with our base. That's the layer of the salad greens on the bottom. You're going to line that plate or the bowl that you're using as the vessel to hold the salad. Most of the time you use small leafy greens for this layer. That's the base. So then we go on to the body. So this is the main ingredients, the main event. This is where you're going to have possibly a mixture of vegetables, some meats, especially if it's going to be an entree salad, some cheeses, and various fruits. You may have a mayonnaise-based salad, a bound salad. We're going to talk more about that in a little while, but that may sit down as the body of the salad. And then you probably would vary these ingredients depending upon the occasion or the season that they're in to make sure that you have the freshest and best quality products in there. And then on to the third element of our salad, and that's the dressing. We're going to look more into those shortly, but this is a liquid or a semi-liquid used to flavor the salads. It holds the salads together. So in some of these salads, we bind the salads with our dressing. We'll talk more about that too, possibly with either a mayonnaise or a vinaigrette. And then we're going to use cold sauces, or we could use cold sauces to either flavor or moisten or enrich all of the salad. It could be we have green and vegetable salads where we're using tart or sour dressings. Fruit salads, you're going to generally use a slightly sweetened dressing, but you still want to have that acidity in there as well. You're generally going to be able to either mix it ahead and plate it at service time as well. But there are some items that you may want to actually dress them literally right at the time of service so that you don't have the salad become limp and stale. Then on top of all that, the fourth and possibly most important thing visually is that you have a garnish. This is where you want to enhance the appearance of your salad. It complements the overall taste, so it shouldn't be clashing with the flavor of that salad. And it's eaten with the body of the salad, so it's part of that flavor component that works with it, not against it. It should be simple. It shouldn't be super complex and difficult to achieve. And it mixes well with the other ingredients. And then always consider different components and the overall taste just to make sure that you're not creating something that won't work together. So what types of salads do we have? So we've got green salads. So these are like tossed or composed salads. We've got bound salads. We've got vegetable salads, fruit salads, and then combination salads. So let's take a look at a green salad. A green salad can be tossed or composed. So this is where we're preparing the ingredients individually, and then afterwards we're either going to toss them, where we're mixing all the ingredients together right before plating, or we compose them, where we don't toss the ingredients at all. We'd actually arrange all of the base ingredients out on the plate, and then we would actually compose, we'd place the ingredients on top of that. It creates the desired taste experience that we're looking for with a high level of visual appeal. Then we move on to bound salads. So bound salads, this can be things like different meat salads, poultry, fish, like tuna salad, egg salads, starch salads, like potato salad, pasta or rice salad. So this is where we're taking ingredients where we've cooked the ingredients, say if it's potatoes or pasta, and then we're binding them together with a heavy dressing.
Hey y'all, it's Rosie, and in this video, I'm going to show you how I make my version of Southern style potato salad. I'm going to start off with some russet potatoes, then I'm going to rinse and scrub under cool water, and once I'm done doing that, I'm going to place my potatoes into a large pot. I'm going to leave my potatoes whole, as you can see, and now I'm going to start pouring in some cool water. I want to add just enough water to cover up my potatoes, and then I'm going to boil these potatoes over high heat until they are nice and fork tender. Once my potatoes are done, I'm going to drain the water, and I'm going to let these sit until they're cool enough for me to handle, because I will peel those using my hands. And while the potatoes are cooling down, I'm going to chop up some onion. For my potato salad, I really like green onion. I use the green parts and the white parts. If you're not a fan of green onion, you can use yellow or white. I'm also going to be using some celery. And FYI, I did rinse and wash my celery and onion before I chop them up. So I'm going to chop this up nice and fine. And now I'm going to peel my potatoes using my hands. So once the potatoes are nice and peeled, I'm going to grab a knife and I'm just going to cut my potatoes. Some people like their potato salad mushy. Some people like it chunkier. If you like it mushy, mush your potatoes up. If you like it chunky, you can leave it just like I have mine. While my potatoes boiled, I actually boiled up a few eggs, and these are them. I'm just going to crumble them up using my whisk there. And once I'm done crumbling up the eggs, I'm going to add the eggs into the bowl along with my potatoes. So followed by the eggs, I'm going to start adding in my green onion. And don't forget, if you're not a fan of green onion, you can use yellow onion or white. And I also added in my celery. At this time, I'm going to start sprinkling in my seasonings. I have some pepper. I'm using black pepper, some salt, garlic pepper, and not garlic pepper, but garlic powder and onion powder. And that is enough seasoning for me. Season it to your taste. And after I'm done seasoning this up, I'm going to make my dressing for my potato salad. So you'll need some mayonnaise. I'm using Best Foods, aka Hummus. And you're also going to need some mustard. I'm using regular yellow mustard. Followed by the mustard, I'm going to add in some dill relish. And I will also be using sweet relish as well. If you want to just use one of the two, you certainly can do so. Just double it. And now I'm going to add in some pickle juice. That's my little secret recipe, or my secret ingredient. And now, once everything's in there, I'm going to mix it until it's well combined. Don't forget, if you want the exact measurements, visit my blog, iHeartRecipes.com. If you're watching this on YouTube, there will be a clickable link down in the description box. And now we're going to add our dressing with the other ingredients. So once it's in there, fold the ingredients. Be sure not to, overmix, otherwise it will be really mushy. But if you like it mushy, hey, that's your thing. Do you. And once everything is nicely mixed, I'm just going to place this in the refrigerator until it's nice and cool. And now I'm going to just dish it out in my serving dish. And that's really it. Really delicious, simple to make, really easy.
Potato salad is a perfect example of a bound salad. But as you can see, there's lots of other ones that are available for us to be able to play with as well. So then moving on to vegetable salads, and so actually a bound salad called coleslaw can also apply to both of these. As you can see, we've got a picture of one over here, and that's prepared from cooked and or raw vegetables. You would be using either a heavy or a light dressing, and you can allow ingredients to rest, because when you make a coleslaw the day before, that all the vegetables that are in there are very hard vegetables. You're looking at very fibrous, hard vegetables. this gives the dressing time to start breaking some of the sinewy nature of those vegetables down, and it also helps the flavor to start bleeding out into that dressing as well. Whether it's mayonnaise or a heavy vinaigrette, it helps it to start coming out so that it infuses all the flavor between all of it, rather than you just tasting carrot or just tasting cabbage. Now you can taste all of it blended together. That's when you get a really good coleslaw. So you're looking for increased flavor and a change in that texture as the acid actually starts to chemically cook those vegetables. Then we have fruit salads. So fruit salads, they're slightly sweet or sweet sour dressings are ideal to go with them. You want something that will work well with it, but emphasize the flavors in there as well. Always make sure you're handling that fruit carefully. You don't want to bruise the fruit and damage the fruit so that it becomes mushy. You want for it to be nice and bright and vibrant and fresh. And prepare the salad close to service time. Just because some fruits do tend to brown, some or a lot of them actually will lose moisture very easily as well. So we have to be careful with them. Then we come on to our combination salad. So combination salads is where you have a combination of different types of salad. So you could have a meat salad, you could have a bound salad, you could have green salad, you could have a vegetable salad, and you have these all arranged out. This is perfect for if you're doing some platters of food and things like that. As you can see over here, you can make an incredibly good appearance on a plate when you're placing these combination salads together. So now we have to talk about some food safety when it comes to dealing with salads. Always bear in mind, salads are ready-to-eat foods. Do you remember where we keep ready-to-eat foods in our refrigerator? That's right, up top, so that they do not get dripped on by anything else. We have to make sure that all of our ready-to-eat foods are very carefully cared for so that we don't have any kind of mishaps where they could be contaminated in any kind of way. You want to make sure you wash your hands before you prep these things, and you wear single-use gloves anytime that you're dealing with salad items so that we're not contaminating or cross-contaminating any of these food items. Change the gloves when it's required, when you're going from one item to another, but make sure you wash your hands in between as well. Very important. So we talked a little about construction of our salads, so let's talk a little more about that, because we want to create a really attractive salad. So this is where we're going to be using a plate or a bowl as our picture frame. This is what we're going to be using as our canvas to be able to make something that looks really great. You want to select the right dish for the portion. So you don't want to have a plate that's too small. When you're making an entree salad, if you have a small plate, the food's dropping off the edges. It should be that nothing is touching the rim of that plate and that everything is held on that plate. It looks more attractive on a well-sized plate. You want to maintain that color balance. If you're making a green salad, then you're looking to have different shades of green, not everything just being monotone green. If you're making a fruit salad, then you don't just want to have one single color of different types of fruit. You want to have a menagerie of different colors on there so that it pops, so it gives it great eye appeal. You want to add height to that salad. Height brings beauty, and also cutting ingredients neatly and uniformly really gives a really attractive kind of look as well. You want to make sure that the ingredients are easily identifiable. You want, especially if you have items in a salad that may have allergens, you want to make sure that people are aware so that they don't accidentally eat something which could have a bad effect on them afterwards. You want to make sure that you are finely chopping seasoning ingredients so that they can be dispersed throughout the entire salad, and keep ingredient arrangements simple. The simpler the better. The easier it is to identify things and to be able to really enjoy that type of salad. So let's take a look at some different designs of really attractive salads, some of these classics. So over on the left we have our Caesar salad. So this is something that's been around for a long, long time and has never lost popularity. So you have the romaine lettuce. That's a relatively mild salad, but lettuce leaf, but it does have a nice crunch to it, so you have that component. Then we've got some croutons on there. That also gives that crunchiness as well. So we've got some different types of textures going on. We also have Parmesan cheese in there, which gives a real great, strong, pungent type of flavor to it, as well as that Caesar dressing, which has an anchovy base to it, some lemon juice in there as well, with some Worcestershire sauce. So it has a great piquant. It has a great sharpness and flavor that works really well to coat the leaves and to give a lot of flavor in there. Then we move on to our caprese salad. So this is a very traditional salad with where you have some really ripe tomatoes, and so it's important. Only ever try and make caprese salads during tomato season. When we have tomatoes that are fresh and local, that's when you use the tomatoes. They've got lots of flavor, they're nice and sweet, but with a good acidity to themselves as well. Then you also have interwoven in there, you have the mozzarella slices. Use a great buffalo mozzarella that's really rich. By having that, you have the acidity of the tomatoes next to each other. They literally season one another. And then just to drizzle over the top, you have the balsamic dressing, or is either a balsamic dressing or just a plain balsamic vinegar. That you can actually get aged balsamic vinegars that can be decades old, that are sweet and acidic at the same time, but not overly acidic, that just bring everything together wonderfully with a nice sprinkle of basil over the top. Then we move on to our crab and shrimp tower salad, also called a Napoleon, where we have levels, we have layers. So we start off with our avocado, then we have tomatoes, and as we're working up, we've got our crab and we've got our shrimp as our garnish on top. You've got lots of flavors, but amazing eye appeal with this type of presentation. When we're looking to prepare vegetable salads, first of all, as with most other things that we're doing in the kitchen, we're gathering all of our ingredients. We want to put together our mise en place. And so we're going to cut the ingredients. We're going to cut them uniformly and neatly so that they look attractive. Cut those fresh vegetables close to service time so they're not drying out or oxidizing. We're going to cook those vegetables according to the recipe, whether you want to have them maybe firm and crisp in nature, or if you're making something like a potato salad that you can stick a knife into it and it's just about tender but not overcooked and falling apart. You want to maintain really great color. Then you're going to drain off and chill any cooked vegetables before you mix them so they don't start to destroy them and break them down. You're going to toss the ingredients in a clean stainless steel bowl and then use a chilled plate or a bowl to actually serve them in. When we're preparing our green salad, so we're choosing our ingredients, various different types of greens and different green vegetables, washing and cleaning those ingredients. Discard any withered or wilted, moldy or discolored or rotten pieces. We don't want to have any of that in there. And then removing any bitter or woody stems that tend to be on some different types of vegetables and lettuces. And get rid of any cores as well. And then use a salad spinner to dry the ingredients. This means that you're not going to destroy the actual lettuce leaves, but they will be nice and dry. If you have wet lettuce leaves and you're trying to pour a vinaigrette onto them, it'll literally pour right off and onto the bottom of the plate. You want those lettuce greens to always be as dry as you can. And then we're going to always use uniform cuts, keeping everything looking good and regimented. It's very attractive to the eye. And then we're going to store those ingredients immediately. Remember, these are ready-to-eat foods that we have to take care of. We don't want them to wilt, but we also don't want any bacterial growth to occur either. So tearing or cutting greens into bite-sized pieces so that people don't have to hack away at them on their plate. A lot of the time, many people actually like to eat their salad without having to use their knife even. And then serving this, making sure that the serving size of the lettuce is no bigger than the half of a dollar bill. So then when we're tossing a green salad, we're looking to combine all the ingredients in a stainless steel clean bowl. Toss the ingredients gently. You're going to actually be moving them from underneath, just kind of folding them over onto each other without crushing them at all and damaging the leaves. Mix them uniformly and then add any non-juicy raw vegetable garnish to them as well. Garnishing with different vegetables right before service, avocados, things like that, always take care of. Make sure that they don't oxidize at all because they can brown down very quickly. And then adding any croutons so that they don't go soggy beforehand. Then we're dressing the greens appropriately, just lightly coating those greens, about 1/3 of an ounce of dressing to a full ounce of the actual greens that you're dressing is quite sufficient. And then we're going to place them on a cold plate. You don't want to plate salads up more than about 2 hours before service, absolute max. Otherwise, they do tend to start wilting. And certainly, if you're dressing them, you may not even have that much time with certain types of lettuce. So serve it on a chilled plate with a chilled fork. And then composed green salads. So these are the types of salads where we're actually placing all these items out nicely, almost like we're composing a beautiful portrait. And so we're going to place all of the ingredients on a chilled plate or a bowl. We're going to toss the ingredients with any dressing. We're going to be placing the ingredients nicely out on that plate and garnishing and dressing them, serving them chilled with a chilled fork. So then with bound salads, so we talked briefly about that. Always make sure that the main ingredients are cooked correctly. So with pasta, you want them to be al dente. You want to actually slightly undercook that pasta so that it has a slight bite to it. So say if it says cook 5 to 7 minutes, cook it for 4 minutes. Just so that way it's slightly underdone, because you're going to have to chill it back down again. And so there's going to be additional cooking is going to occur just from that chilling time, and when it sits in that cold water afterwards as well. With potatoes, you want them to be soft through to the center, but not mushy. You don't want them to be breaking down at all. With other proteins and things, make sure that they're moist and tender. When they chill down, then they're just going to solidify a little more. So you want to make sure you have uniform sized ingredients, nice attractive shapes. Make sure it's well balanced and seasoned with the dressing. And then chill the ingredients during preparation just to make sure that we're keeping everything safe. Add any crisp foods for flavor and interest to it as well. And then marinate things like potatoes and seafood. In fact, the potatoes, while they're still slightly warm, are actually quite open to being able to be marinated then. Once potatoes chill down after they've been cooked, the starches tend to kind of seal them off, so it's harder to get flavors into the actual potatoes after that. But then fold in any thick dressings like mayonnaise, and use scoops to portion. That also can add height and shape to the salad that you're presenting as well. Serve again on chilled plates. Make sure you have an appropriate base and an appropriate garnish to offset everything and make it look attractive as well. So looking at gelatin salads. So I'm sure that most of you have either eaten or seen Jell-O before. You may not consider that to be a salad, but it can be. But we can also make some base gelatin salads using just gelatin and then adding our own flavoring and sweetening or savory ingredients to it. So we do have to be careful when we're using gelatin to use the appropriate amount depending upon exactly what we're using it for. So if you want to make a molded gelatin, you're going to use about 2 ounces of dry, unsweetened gelatin per gallon of liquid. If you want to make a medium texture, a sliceable type of gelatin, then you're going to use 8 ounces of dry, unsweetened gelatin per gallon of liquid. Or if you want to have just a regular like a Jell-O, then you're going to use sweetened flavored gelatin, about 24 ounces of gelatin per gallon of liquid. So things to consider as you're preparing these. So you're going to make sure that you're checking on that recipe, making sure that it's exactly the way you want it to be. Make sure you test that recipe to make sure it's going to work, because it can change. Gelatins can be finicky. Make sure that you're adding in ingredients that will work for you. So gelatin dissolves at about 100 Fahrenheit, so not much below or not much above body temperature. And so you have to bear this in mind, because if you're making a gelatin product for a banquet, and that banquet's going to be served in a marquee outside with no air conditioning on a summer day in the south, then you may find that gelatin starts to melt before people actually get to enjoy it and see it. So make sure you're always planning these out well. You can add some solid ingredients to these gelatins, and I'll show you in a minute a picture of what I mean. But say if you have an orange salad and you have some orange slices and you want to suspend them in the gelatin, you just wait until it's partially set, till it's partially cooled and it gets thicker, and you can actually add them in and they will hold in place. So mix them, make sure you mix it evenly so that you're actually preventing anything from sinking, because you want it to hold in place. Two fruits always to bear in mind anytime you're making jello or gelatin salads is raw pineapple or raw papaya. They both have an enzyme in them naturally, which when they're raw will dissolve gelatin. So that's a problem for us, because if you add raw papaya and raw pineapple into your gelatin, it will never ever set. You can freeze it and it will go hard then, but as soon as it starts to come back up to refrigerator temperature, it will melt. So always bear that in mind. However, if you use canned pineapple or canned papaya, those are now cooked, so you can use that, but not raw. Make sure if you're using canned fruit to drain the canned fruit, because you don't want to be adding extra liquid into your gelatin, because then it may not set. Pour the gelatin into molds or into pans, and then you can to unmold them to get them back out to have a nice attractive look like this one right here. You can press a knife in just at the edge to start loosening it, and then just dip the actual main bowl into hot water just for 2-3 seconds. It's all it takes, and it starts to melt just the edge of the gelatin, and then you can turn it out to get this really attractive look. And this is what I was talking about when I was talking about waiting until the gelatin is starting to set, just when it's starting to thicken up, and you can place these fruit pieces in there, and they hold suspended in there. They look very attractive. Always make sure you keep your gelatins refrigerated until just before service, just so they don't melt. So when we're producing fruit salads, so when we're going to you either toss or compose those salads, you want to make sure that things like bananas, apples, pears, that these are all dipped in lemon juice and water to stop the browning that can occur, the enzymatic browning that can occur from oxidization. Make sure you're preparing them fairly close to service, because all fruit can have a tendency of drying and shriveling and becoming unattractive, and it can denature the texture of that fruit as well. Make sure you're draining any canned fruit used for dressings, so we're not watering down anything. Make sure you have nice, attractive and delicate pieces on top. That's what's going to be seen first, so make sure that you have the best of everything up on top. Any broken or less attractive pieces can go underneath and just kind of bulk out that salad. You can either use a sweet or a tart dressing when it comes to fruit. A tart or sharper, sour type of dressing can work well because that's a seasoning to it. A sweet one can work well if you actually have some sharper fruits that you actually want to give a slight sweetness to. So let's look at some of our convenience products that we can use. So generally, you want to thoroughly wash all of your greens that you get in. You've got pesticides. The fact is, they were out and about in the middle of a field. The people who are picking these fruits and vegetables don't necessarily have a clean bathroom and hand sink to be able to wash their hands. So we always want to make sure we're thoroughly washing all of our greens. You don't want to handle the ingredients too much, but so by buying previously prepared salad items, we can actually minimize how much we're actually touching these things. You don't want to open the containers until they're ready for use in this case, otherwise they can tend to brown down. Things like iceberg lettuce that you have here, once it hits the air, especially when it's shredded like that, it oxidizes and browns down and just breaks down very, very quickly. Always check the quality, especially of pre-packed greens. They can tend to start going bad and start going limp and kind of go mushy fairly easily as well. They are very convenient though. If you don't have enough space in your kitchen to be able to have increased staffing to take care of salads, then this can help you to get through without having to have that, but also it can help you decrease your labor costs if you can't afford to have an additional chef working in the kitchen. It also decreases the risk of contamination where less hands have been touching these foods as well. So when we are washing our greens, we want to make sure, obviously, that they're always kept at refrigerator temperatures, but just above freezing though. We want it to be between about 36 and 41 Fahrenheit, so that they don't get too warm and they start breaking down, but also not too cold that they freeze and that we're in danger of these lettuces becoming all limp as well. So clean the greens thoroughly. Remove any of the outer leaves that may be damaged and getting on the older side, a little more fibrous. We want to separate the leaves out so we can rinse them really thoroughly. The water should be warmer than the greens. Avoid soaking them because they can actually take on more water and become more limp. You want to dry your greens in a spinner, just like we're showing in the picture over here. By drying them in a spinner, you're not going to crush those leaves, so you're not going to damage the quality of those leaves, but you do get rid of that water that otherwise would not allow our dressing to stick to our leaves. You can also use a colander as well. That would work just fine. And then remove any stems or wilted spots in those salads. We always want to have the highest quality. Tear delicate greens so you don't bruise the leaves. Always refrigerate them afterwards as well. Alright, so now we're going to move on to dressings, oils and vinegars, and how we use these to do different things. So you have things like salad dressings. This enhances the salad's ingredients. It's a seasoning to our salads. We've got some different dressing types. Depending upon the textures of our ingredients and our salad items, depends upon what type of dressing would be most suitable. We have light dressings, which are perfect for delicate ingredients. We have heavy dressings that are for more robust, heartier types of ingredients. So when we look at some basic dressings, so the primary dressings, we have vinaigrettes, we have emulsified vinaigrettes, we have mayonnaise-based dressings, and we have just regular mayonnaise. So at its base form, we have oil and vinegar. You put these together, we're going to make a much lighter, thinner dressing. It's great for placing onto delicate salad items. You generally want to use a 3 parts oil to 1 part vinegar as your basic measurements, but this can be done to taste as well, depending upon the acidity of the vinegar and the strength of flavor in our oils as well. You can substitute vinegar for just acidic juices, things like lemon juice, orange juice, lime juice, grapefruit juice. These can all be substituted out as well.
How to make a vinaigrette dressing. The standard ratio for a basic vinaigrette is 3 parts oil to 1 part vinegar or other acid, like lemon juice. A basic recipe for herb vinaigrette is 3 cups olive oil with 1 cup red wine vinegar, 1 tablespoon salt, 1 tablespoon thyme, and 1 tablespoon black pepper. Now, combine all of the ingredients into a large mixing bowl. Then whisk rapidly to incorporate the ingredients together. Remember that basic vinaigrettes separate after a short period of time, so always mix or whisk the ingredients back together before use. Finish by serving on your favorite greens. How to make a vinaigrette dressing.
These types of basic dressings are a temporary suspension. This is where we're making it where we're shaking together the vinegar and the oil, and temporarily they're going to mix, but eventually they will separate back out. So before every service, before every time you're using this, you have to give it a little shake or whisk just to put it back together again. So this can be a little inconvenient, but you can get some very nice basic types of vinaigrettes this way. But there is a different type of vinaigrette that we can use as well. We're going to get more into that in just a moment. But so let's look at the type of base ingredients that we use to make all of these vinaigrettes. So we can use sharp flavored vinegars, we want to use those ones sparingly because we need to be careful that we're not overpowering our salad. Remember, our salad dressing should be seasoning and complementing the actual salad, not overpowering it. Again, with strong flavored oils, these can do the same thing. We want to use those in moderation, and this is where our ratios may change depending on what we're using. So let's look at some of our oils first. So canola oil is a very light color, very mild flavor, low in saturated fat, high in monounsaturated fat, and it has good omega-3 fatty acids in there as well. Then we have corn oil, light golden color, and it's almost tasteless. We have cottonseed, soybean, and safflower oils. They're very bland, almost completely tasteless. So these first three oils that you've seen, they're all very mild or almost tasteless. These are great if you're using a vinegar or other types of seasoning ingredients in your vinaigrette and you don't want the oil to be the feature in the flavor. However, if you do want it to be where the oil is one of the main featured flavors, this is when we move into things like olive oil. It has a very distinctive fruit-driven flavor, a greenish color, and then this is not an all-purpose type of oil. So this is something that has a lot of flavor to it, so you want to be very specific when you are using this type of oil. We have peanut oil. Peanut oil is a relatively mild, but has a distinctive kind of funk to it as well. So this is somewhat inexpensive as well. However, be very careful when using peanut or any other nut oils as well, because you have to disclose the fact you're using it so that you can make sure anyone who has an allergy to these nuts or legumes like peanuts won't cause any allergic reactions. Then we have walnuts, another nut oil. It has a very distinctive flavor. It tastes just like walnuts, has that nice bitter kind of flavor to it from the walnuts. This is very expensive. They're used in elegant restaurants with specialty salads. You must, again, disclose for allergy reasons when you use walnut oil or any other kind of nut oil. Balsamic. So balsamic is actually a special wine vinegar that's been aged anywhere from 4 years to 50 years. So this is where you have a very dark brown, sweet-flavored vinegar. The acidity tends to be lower on a balsamic vinegar, and it has a slightly sticky kind of a consistency because it is so concentrated, because it's been aged for so long. A lot of the water content has actually evaporated during that aging process. Then you have cider vinegar. Cider vinegar is made with apples, and so this has a brown color to it and a very slightly sweet taste to it as well. It's a relatively mild acidity. And then we have some other flavored vinegars where you actually have tarragon, garlic, or raspberries that may have been added to a base vinegar as well, just to flavor them up. Then you have sherry wine vinegar, which has a fortified wine flavor to it. Then you have a few specialty items on the vinegars. This is where you have malts, rice vinegar, and vinegars flavored with different fruits, raspberries, lemon juice, other citrus. You have white or distilled vinegars. They generally are a very neutral flavored but purely acidic type of a vinegar. And then we have white wine or red wine or champagne vinegars as well. These are made with those base wines in the first place. So let's now talk about how we make one of those dressings where it all stays together. It emulsifies. And this is where we're going to try and take the fat and the water-based parts of our vinaigrette, and we're going to try and make them stick together and stay together. So that's why we're going to take something that has lecithin, for example, which is what we find in egg yolks, and that helps to bind it all together. You can use mustards as well. They're not quite as strong as you saw in that video. They don't hold everything together quite as well, but those egg yolks with the lecithin in them holds together really well, and it makes a very consistent type of a dressing that you can use all the way through the day, and it's not going to split. So mayonnaise. So this is our thickest and most stable dressing of all. It's an emulsion again, but this is a thicker emulsion. So this is when you're using a higher ratio of oil to vinegar. So this is also where we're going to have a greater quantity of egg yolks in our dressing to make it thicker.
Mayonnaise, don't be scared of making it. Basically, all it is a multiplication of raw egg yolks and groundnut oil. Groundnut oil because it's a neutral oil. It's not flavoured. 3 egg yolks, teaspoon of English mustard, and the mustard gives the mayonnaise a little bit of heat. Now, lid on. If you haven't got a mixer, you can whisk it by hand. This is a lot quicker. Once you've mixed it, this is where it's really important that we add the oil slowly. The first 30 seconds of making mayonnaise is the most crucial. Slowly with the oil. That stops it from splitting. This is 300 ml of groundnut oil. Drizzle it into the eggs. And you never season mayonnaise until the end. When you season it to begin with, it destroys the egg yolks. Now we can add the oil a little bit quicker. You can just hear that sound where it goes from liquid to a really nice thick mayonnaise. Now seasoning it, salt, pepper, fresh lemon juice. That gives it a really nice sort of zesty freshness, makes it exuberant. And then just a quick blast. And what we're looking for is this really nice, soft, creamy, textured mayonnaise. Beautiful.
We can make lots of different dressings using our mayonnaise, lots of different flavoring ingredients that you can add in there, but this is all about making a very creamy type of a dressing. Thicker than emulsified vinaigrettes. You're going to apply these close to service. It's very versatile. It's very sturdy and able to hold up with a lot of situations. You can have lots of different flavor profiles as well. You can add mustard in there, garlic, herbs, spices, all sorts of different types of things that will work well in all sorts of different cases. So let's take a look at where we use our different dressings. So if you're using a vinaigrette dressing made with vegetable or olive oil and vinegar or lemon juice, just one of our basic vinaigrettes, you can use those on any greens really. And then if you're going to use a vinaigrette that's made with nut oil or balsamic vinegar, so a little bit more strength to it, you're going to use those on some delicate greens. And then if you're going to use emulsified vinaigrette dressings, those slightly thicker vinaigrette dressings, those can work well on any greens. And then mayonnaise-based dressings, you're going to use those on some hardy greens. Things like, if you're using it on kale and things like that, it works really well with those. Let's talk a little about dips. So when you're making dips, you're looking to basically make a flavorful mixture. It can accompany certain different food items as well. You can serve them hot or cold. So cold dip bases can be things like mayonnaise, sour cream, and cream cheese. There should be the correct consistency and temperature to what you're planning for them to be. So it could be that you're looking to have them to scoop with crackers and chips or vegetables. So you have to make sure that if it's going to be a hot dip or a cold dip, that when it's either hot or cold, then it's the appropriate kind of consistency, that you're not going to be snapping your crackers or your chips off in there because it's too thick when it's too cold, or that it's too thin when it's too hot, that it just runs right off. So always bear in mind as well, if you've made that dressing or that dip and you're then going to put it into the refrigerator before service, bear in mind when you serve that dip, when it's refrigerated, it may be significantly thicker. You have some of them where they heat quite well in a microwave. Just bear in mind, always be careful. Or in an oven, just make sure that you're going to end up with the consistency that you're looking for at the end. So some traditional dips that are from around the world. So we have things like guacamole. This is an avocado-based dip. This has Aztec origins to it. There's salsa, made from peppers, onions, and tomatoes. This is a Mexican based dip. Then we have hummus, made with chickpeas, garlic, and tahini. Tahini is a sesame seed paste. This traditionally comes from the Middle East. We have queso. So queso Oaxaca, peppers and spices. This is traditionally from Mexico. Plum sauce. This is from China, made with plums, soy, garlic, ginger, and vinegar. So you have a nice sweet savory kind of flavor going through this. And then you have spinach and artichoke. This is an American favorite, made with spinach, mayonnaise, cream cheese, artichokes, and spices. So making a cold dip. So let's take a look at one, for example. As you can see from that example, hummus can be a very varied type of a product for a dip that you can literally add any kinds of flavors you want. Those chickpeas really don't have a huge amount of flavor by themselves, so it's all about what you add to them. They are a vessel that will take on the flavors of anything that's added into them. So you can kind of play around with it. But so when you're making a dip, a cold dip, you're going to select some kind of a base that you're going to use. So it could be the chickpeas, it could be cream cheese, it could be sour cream, whatever you're looking to use as the base. And then you add your flavoring ingredients. You want the ingredients to be well blended so that the consistency is exactly where you want it to be. You may find, like we saw in the video there with the hummus, it can be a little overly thick. So you may want to add a little water or maybe a little lemon juice or other type of juice to it, just to thin it out a little bit as well. And then either serve it immediately or refrigerate. Remember, this is a ready-to-eat food. Always be careful with those foods. Wow, we really covered a ton of things in salads, dressings, and dips. I hope that you were able to take all of that in. You may need to go back and watch this again or watch parts of it again, just because there's so much going on. But there's never anything boring about a salad. If you feel that salads are boring, maybe it's just that you haven't really investigated what the possibilities are in salads yet. But take a look at them. We're going to be making some salads in class, and we're going to be making some dressings in class, so that you can experience full on what it is to be a salad. But start thinking about it as well, because it's more about your creativity that's going to give us the ability to make better, more interesting salads too. I'll see you in class. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. Cheers.